It's a charming vintage. And now, strangely, I feel the very lightly acidity on the back coming, but because it's not a vintage characterized by strong acidity, but it's not in the attack, it's in the back. Comes back. It's
forward.
Well, it's very creamy, much
Some
rounder
lovely fruit
approach.
as well.
Yes, absolutely. No, it's
delicious.
a nice word. You might know that each time we produce a vintage, we have a different label. So the theme we chose for this wine is Volupté. But volupté in French has not exactly the same meaning than in English.
Yeah.
In French, volupté is a word that we would use. Yes, it has a central note as well, but more than that, it would relate to a sensation of fullness. Plenitude. You would say it in the Garden of Eden, for instance, if you see what I mean.
Yes.
There is this wonderful poetry that says. Ici, tout n'est qu'ordre et beauté, luxe, calme et volupté. It could describe a place like that, actually, which means terrible translation. I'm sorry, but here everything is all about order and beauty, luxury, refinement, and volupté. 06 was a wonderful year for Chardonnay, particularly. It was kind of an extreme, well, it was a real year with a really cold winter and a really warm July, but also followed by some rain in August, which for the Chardonnays was brilliant because they could continue their ripening nicely. It was harder on Pinots. So that's how we chose to work 06 as a Blanc de Blanc. And then for the origin of the grapes, very naturally for us, we really focus in Côte des Blancs. We are always interested in Champagne with a subsoil originating of chalk. And of course you also have in other areas, but for Chardonnays predominantly, Côte des Blancs is...
What do you think it is that made the vintage special when you said this is going to be a vintage song?
You have a first desire, intuition, curiosity when you see beautiful golden grapes, very healthy, and you taste them and you can feel that the tannins are very disappearing and the fruit is here and you can feel the richness of it. It's obviously a first temptation. The first real decision is made in the following spring. At Bruno Paillard we bottle very late because it's our freedom to have the entire end of winter, beginning of spring, doing series of tasting of each base wine and see really which one should or shouldn't be included in the blend. And that's when you're making the decision of bottling it separately and which villages. But that's clearly when it was decided to do 06 and when it was decided to do 06 as a Blanc de Blanc and when it was decided to use these villages in a separate bottling. Well, we will forget it for 4 or 5 years. And then we will taste it regularly to see how it goes. And that's when we make the final decision.
To leave it for 5 years or however long, it's quite a big investment on your part. What's the production?
Vintage, I think, normally it's around 15,000 bottles, 14,800 precisely, plus 2,400 minors. Thanks. We have very informative back labels, as you can see.
And what would you put at the aging potential? I mean, for the vintage, because we assume that a vintage is going to age.
And it's a legitimate thing to think. We could consider the longer the wine ages on its lees, and a vintage traditionally ages longer, the longer it can age after it's been disgorged. For this judgment, you need an information of importance, which is a disgorgement date. And this is why it's always written on the back labels, and we're introducing now a wine that we disgorged 18 months ago.
Right, okay.
That's important because we never ship the wine right after it's disgorged. We send it back to the cellar for recovery time after disgorgement. It means before that it had 8 years of lees aging. And with such a base and a balance, you imagine it can go 1, 2, 3 decades. Now, one could say, well, 06 doesn't have a strong acidity base, and that would be absolutely true to say. 06 doesn't have a strong acidity base. It's not like 06 or 02, not at all. So you could think it would age not as much. Yet, it's quite interesting to observe that in the recent history of champagne, vintages that had a very refined balance, and I'm thinking of 95 for instance,
Yeah.
or even 99, which is riper than 95, aged wonderfully. Voilà. So only time will tell. But of course, I will go 3 decades with this wine, no problem. But it would be different. It will go toward more of the nut aspect, toasted, more of the pastry notes, more of the ashes sensation, more of the beeswax and honey notes, more of the. That's around 15 years after disgorgement, 10, 15 years. If you go further than that, you'll probably be much more around torrefaction, toasted aromas, etc. So it's next licorice as well, probably. Yeah. But then that's why it's important to be informed of the date, because in the end, how do you like your wine? And if you like it as it is now, really focused more on on the buttery notes, the fruitiness, etc. Then fine, have it from now and 5 years. Post disgorgement, and it will be quite stable.
It's also fun to watch it develop.
I agree, but that's everybody's freedom, and of course it also depends if you're able to store it, because these evolutions are only valid for properly stored wines.
Yes.
I speak too much, sorry.
No, it's